So let's see if I can reverse jinx the Blazers the way that I did with the Wizards. Since I did the Bradley Beal video, the Wizards haven't lost a game, I'm pretty sure. I think the Blazers need some real changes this offseason. The obvious one is Terry Stotts, and I mean, Blazers fans have been saying it all year. It's stagnant offense, pick and rolls for Dame and CJ, not a whole lot of off-ball stuff to give them variety. Defensively, whether it's trying to step up on screens, play conservative defense to allow teams to take mid-range jumpers, it's nothing's working. Part of it is sure, Nurkic is not the guy he was a couple years ago defensively. Also, he just has barely played this season. Cantor and Melo are not good on defense. Zach Collins getting hurt was tough. But yeah, I'm in on the fire Terry Stotts thing. But I do think it's got to be a pretty hard look at the roster as well. And I guarantee you, if you look hard enough, you're going to find some trade CJ stuff. Look, the reason why the Blazers are struggling is not because of Dame and CJ and some unwritten rule about your two best players being in the backcourt. It's because the talent around those two is not good enough and the coach is not good enough. And again, they've had bad luck with injuries. So besides firing Terry Stotts and getting a coach who just brings more stuff to this team besides just the same play a million times, I think, they've got a bunch of expiring money. They got Derek Jones's $9.7. They got Covington's $13 million contract. They got Simons and Nasir Little, and they apparently can trade a first. I mean, if they make the playoffs, they definitely can, because then the protections from the Covington Rockets trade are gone. If they don't, apparently they could have at the deadline. I still don't really know how, but people said they could. So the point being is if they can pair up some of those expiring contracts with a pick or two, you could go get someone who hopefully has a little bit more punch on offense and makes it tougher for teams to load up on Dame and CJ. I say this with every trade thing. I think Harrison Barnes would be a really, really good fit for them. Don't know if the Kings would actually move him. So if someone like him would be available, that would be huge for them. Whether they would be aggressive enough to make a move is a different question. That's been a criticism of mine with this front office. The other wild thing could be if they wanted to get a different center who could be more of a guarantee defensively than Nurkic. Just don't really know who that guy would be. I mean, I know Bleacher Report tries to trade Miles Turner in every single article they do, but I think he's pretty pivotal for Indiana, but that would be the type of guy who would be amazing for Portland. To me, the ideal look of a Blazers team, besides just having a third real star next to Dame and CJ, would be a roster full of guys who can defend and switch across a bunch of positions, but still be good enough on offense to make plays off the dribble and all that, to where you can't just load up on Dame and CJ all day. It's kind of tough to put that roster together. I mean, I feel like there's been moments in the past where if this team was a little more aggressive, maybe they could have built that roster. I mean, the one thing I always come back to with Portland, their real one misfire, was when they didn't go all in for Jimmy when he was traded for Covington and Saric. They probably would have had to give up a few picks, but so what? The other thing, too, is, of course, Norman Powell's free agency, and they're probably going to have to pay him, I don't know, at around $20 million a year to keep him, and they're hugging the luxury tax at the moment, so that's going to be interesting. I know there's a bit of a conversation about, is Powell too short to play next to Dame and CJ? I mean, yeah, but I think Powell is one of the few dudes who effectively plays taller than he is just because of his strength and wingspan and athleticism and all that. And also he's a guy who gives them real stuff to the basket off of Dame and CJ stuff, whereas most of the guys they've had are just spot-up dudes. So yeah, man, they've got options for things to do. And I would hope that they're not afraid to go for it a little bit. I mean, Dame is 30. Sure, he's probably still got 4 years left or so of being awesome, but the clock is kind of ticking on that, and it would be nice if he was on a real title contender. But even so, I mean, you look at LeBron and AD are going to be on the Lakers for a while longer, and whatever else might happen. The Blazers' only real way to become a title contender around Dame is probably just going to have to be they acquire another all-star, and it's kind of tough to see the way they do that. I mean, the only thing I could think of would be a Powell sign and trade with a bunch of picks going to somebody. This is assuming they're allowed to move that many picks, because again, the Covington protections are weird. That said, if they make the playoffs, then they can move any pick they want to, because then it just goes to the Rockets this year. Now, to forget about the offseason for a little bit and just think about the rest of this Blazers season, I mean, Dame being healthy, of course, is the big thing here, but really I'm just questioning if they can pull off some playoff upset. I mean, Dame gives you a chance, and CJ's had big games in the playoffs for what that's all worth, but the Clippers have a huge size advantage on the Blazers. The Suns, it's not as drastic, but it's still kind of there, especially if you got Mikal Bridges just locking up whoever. Also, the Suns are so good on defense, I would imagine that they would force the Blazers to be like, oh crap, what do we do? They're loading up on Dame. And I give the Blazers defense no chance at all to defend all of the swing offense that the Jazz have. So yeah, not exactly the best projection for the rest of the season, and same thing with Lakers and the Nuggets, even if the Nuggets don't have Jamal Murray. I guess the one other idea is they try to be a good team next season while keeping their cap space open for 2023. It's not the most aggressive play. I think they should just try to get good players right now with all the years that they have with Dame and CJ left, but it's a possibility. I guess for this last little bit, just talk about Zach Collins' free agency a little bit more. So he's going to be restricted, and I've just got no clue. I mean, someone could offer him $10 million a year. They could offer him nothing because he's apparently injury prone, and it's not like he was that awesome when he was healthy, but the potential was there, right? So again, I've got no clue. I guess he'll be back for not much. If they wanted to put him in a move, I think it could be through a sign and trade, but then the other team would have to commit to at least like 3 years of him, and I just don't know if teams are going to be that lined up to take on Zach Collins, but maybe it could be ammo in a deal. So yeah, to sum this up, you fire Stotts, you get a coach who hopefully just has more stuff on offense, and you move the roster around a lot, and if that means you got to get off of some guys who you've kind of bought into for a couple years, then so be it. I mean, Dame is, 30, 31, whatever it may be. I mean, even if they bring back pretty much the same roster with maybe a couple small moves, and you hope that Nurkic is all the way back to being what he was a couple years ago defensively, I mean, that's a nice team, but it's not a contender. And again, it would just be cool to see Dame on a contender.